ucieknie. Landa Pol.
A political earthquake rocks Europe as the nation of Sweden turns to the nationalist populist right. We're going to see precisely what happened in Sweden yesterday. We're going to see how it's all part of a much larger trend towards the right taking over Europe. And make sure to stick with me at the very end of this video when we'll find out what's really behind this mass movement to make Sweden great again. You are not going to want to miss this. Greetings, everyone. It's me, Dr. Steve, your patron professor, here to help you to think better so you can feel better in these crazy and turbulent times. So if you haven't already done so, you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. And gang, in research and gathering the information you need to help you think better so you can feel better each and every day, I can honestly say that I rely on no one more than the amazing reporting and informationally rich daily news resources that can be found only at the Epoch Times. The Epoch Times specializes in reporting on news stories that are important to you, news stories that the mainstream media purposely ignores. They focus on clear, fact-based journalism without spin or hidden agendas, precisely because they actually trust you, their discerning readers, to arrive at your own conclusions. Imagine that. The Epoch Times brings you breaking U.S. and world news on all your devices, along with original Epoch TV programs like The Larry Elder Show, along with award-winning documentaries. They're like an information treasure trove, and that's why they're a daily go-to resource for me, and they need to be for you as well. And they want to prove it to you. For a limited time, they have a special offer just for my audience. If you click on that link below, for a limited time, you can subscribe to the Epoch Times for an entire 2 months for just $1. How's that for a gift? You're going to absolutely love them, gang. I couldn't recommend a news resource more highly. Click on that link below and subscribe today. All right, gang, let's dive right in here. The nation of Sweden held their national parliamentary elections yesterday, and they were nothing less than an absolute political earthquake, happening in what many consider to be the single most liberal nation in the whole of Europe. Now, if you don't know, Sweden's got lots and lots of political parties, well over a dozen, right? But yesterday's election basically came down to two blocks or two competing coalitions, a left-wing bloc and a right-wing bloc. So on the left, you've got the ruling Social Democrats, by far the most popular party in Sweden. Again, Sweden has been fulfilling its liberal job description quite well, quite faithfully for a number of years with the Social Democrats. They're aided and abetted by three other smaller left-wing parties, the Greens, what's known as the Center Party, and another party known as the Left Party. Over on the right, the mainstream parties there are very, very moderate. They are so moderate that they actually have a party called the Moderate Party. The Moderate Party is akin more or less to the neocon wing of the Republican Party. They're the mainstream, milquetoast, center-right party, very globalist, very pro-liberal. And then to fill out the right bloc, you've got the Christian Democrat Party and you've got what's called the Liberal Party. But they're classical liberal, like the Australian Liberal Party, not left-wing liberal, but you got it. The huge news of the day is that this right bloc has been totally dominated by a surging nationalist populist party, Sweden's version of the Patriot Party, a Make Sweden Great Again party known as the Sweden Democrats. So don't let the Democrat part throw you here. The Sweden Democrats are a hardcore nationalist populist Patriot Party led by the very young, very charismatic, very politically savvy Jimmie Åkesson. Åkesson has been faithfully leading the Sweden Democrats to bigger and bigger electoral victories, really for the last several years now. And as of yesterday's national elections, the Sweden Democrats had their biggest victory ever. They are now officially the single largest party in the right-wing bloc, the coalition of center-right parties. They are now the kings of the Swedish right, and they are now the second most popular party in all of Sweden, beating out the Moderate Party. And just to give you a sense of how significant that is, The center-right moderates have held the position of the second most popular party in Sweden in every single election since 1979. So this is the first time in over 40 years that the moderates did not come in second to the left-wing social Democrats, not Sweden Democrats, social Democrats. So you definitely have a paradigm shift going on here because they've been losing voters to the far more patriot-based, nationalist, populist Sweden Democrats. And we've got data on that. According to exit polling, the Sweden Democrats have retained the vast majority of their voters from their last national election. That was back in 2018. And they've managed to attract new voters from both the moderate party and, yes, even the center-left social Democrats. And their surge in popularity has brought Sweden's right to the cusp of power. While it's still slightly too close to call to make it official, the right-wing bloc is expected to win the national election by 3 seats in the Riksdag, the Swedish parliament. But regardless of the final outcome, what we have to really understand here is that with the Swedish Democrats taking their place as the largest party in the right-wing bloc, now everything changes in Swedish politics. That position as the largest party in the right-wing bloc now puts Jimmie Åkesson as a future contender for prime minister. And the Sweden Democrats are indisputably in the position now to set the agenda for Swedish politics. And that's not theoretical because they have already been doing it quite effectively. They've effectively put immigration front and center in public policy. They put law and order front and center in public policy. Sweden has had a rash of violent crime epidemics that the Sweden Democrats are blaming their permissive leftist government for and their addiction to unfettered immigration. The Sweden Democrats are already forcing the politics of Sweden as a whole to shift more and more right, with more and more parties agreeing they need to crack down on immigration and crime throughout their nation. It's really astonishing stuff, given the fact that the other milquetoast center-right parties have thus far refused to work with the Sweden Democrats. The Sweden Democrats, up until now, have basically been treated as political lepers. No one on the center-right wanted anything to do with them for the same reason never-Trumpers like Liz Cheney want nothing to do with the Trump and the MAGA movement, right? But as we reported on in an earlier video some months back, as the polls continued to surge for the Sweden Democrats, and as their leader, Jimmie Åkesson, was effectively implementing a policy known as de-diabolization, which is a fancy-schmancy way of saying that Åkesson effectively was bringing the Sweden Democrats out from the political periphery, the political fringe, as it were, and into the political mainstream. The other center-right parties have agreed to start working with the Sweden Democrats in what is now effectively a nationalist right coalition. And again, it needs to be stressed. We're seeing this ascent of the nationalist populist coalition in the heart of the most liberal nation in all of Europe. Now, speaking of Europe, the British scholar, political scholar, Matthew Goodwin, said it quite well. Quote, if Sweden exit poll is right, this will be the strongest ever result for the nationalist populist Sweden Democrats. After similar highs in France, Portugal, Spain, Hungary, and soon Italy, little evidence COVID killed populism. More evidence it's here to stay. And he's absolutely right. Goodwin mentioned France. We did a video a few months back on the astonishing surge of the nationalist populist right party known as National Rally, right, led by Marine Le Pen. In their own parliamentary elections, we're seeing a surge very similar to the Sweden Democrats. In 1997, National Rally only won 1 seat. In 2002 and 2007, they got skunked. They didn't win a single seat in the French parliament. In 2012, they won 2 seats. And in 2017, they won 8 seats. And now, in their last election, which was just in June of this year, just a couple of months back, they won an astonishing 89 seats. They've gone from 1 seat in parliament to 89 seats in a period of 25 years. Sweden Democrats have had a comparable growth. They first entered into parliament just 12 years ago in 2010 with about 6% of the vote. Then 4 years later, in their next parliamentary election, they doubled their seats in the Riksdag, the Swedish parliament, with 13% of the vote. And then in 2018, they grew again, winning 18% of the vote. And now, as of yesterday, they're now at 22%. So in just 12 years, Sweden Democrats have gone from 6% of the vote to now 21 or 22%, a near 400% increase. The Sweden Democrats have never declined in support in a single election. Absolutely astonishing. Interestingly, men are helping to propel the Sweden Democrats to power. Exit polling found that 1 in 4 Swedish men, 25%, voted for the Sweden Democrats. Again, you have to keep it in perspective. That's astonishing given the vast number of parties that Swedish politics has. Moreover, we're seeing the same trend that we've been seeing here in the States and in Britain and in France, where blue-collar workers are defecting away from their traditional party, the political left, and embracing the nationalist populist right. The Sweden Democrats got 30% of the working class vote. And young voters between the ages of 18 to 24 are embracing them as well. Young voters were just as likely to support the Sweden Democrats as they were to support the more left-wing parties. In fact, polls show that the Sweden Democrats have nearly doubled their support among young voters since the 2014 election. All of this is to say that we can clearly discern a trend here. The nationalist populist right, far from shrinking, far from receding, the nationalist populist right is growing. Indeed, it is surging. In the past 17 years, the actual number of nationalist populist parties across the European continent has doubled, growing from 33 to 63. And these parties are seeing extraordinary electoral success. The share of votes won by populist parties in Europe has tripled in the course of such time, from 8.5% of the European vote to nearly now 25% today. And as we can see with the Sweden Democrats and National Rally in France, and what we're about to see in Italy, with the possibility of a nationalist populist supermajority in just a couple of weeks with their elections, the European right's numbers continue to grow each and every year. And now, as of yesterday, they're even taking over the most liberal nation in the whole of Europe. The world is indeed changing, and you can be sure it is changing in our direction. As always, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. You will definitely want to check out my latest video on a desperate DOJ ordering mass FBI raids on Trump allies. You're not going to want to miss that. So make sure to click on the link, and I'll see you over there. God bless.